good afternoon, Laura.
Good afternoon, Otto, and good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, terve to everyone. We decided to break the tradition of opening with terve. I don't know why, but now we have...
happened today.
yes. Maybe because I was just doing another podcast episode for our yoga-themed podcast, and we were talking about rituals, and I've been thinking about how to greet people a lot, and I've noticed that I've sort of chosen to experiment with these greetings that are related to the time of the day. So because most of our greetings are very lazy, we say just hello, and how are you, something like that. But then you can say good morning, and then you look at the watch. Now it's actually already good afternoon, and so on. So,
and it's sometimes funny when different people have the different feeling of when it's okay to say good morning and when do you should start saying good afternoon. Or
yeah. It's a custom, but it's also personal. It seems. Yeah, but it is. I would say it is a lovely afternoon. Although must say we have some struggles at the sauna. Sometimes the technology doesn't work and so on. So now I'm trying to push this a little bit aside and concentrate on talking about deeper aspects of sauna. But I guess this is a learning experience again this day. Probably today, just very concretely, I just saw our service guy walking past, and maybe I learned something about the gas pump of a diesel heater or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, it is kind of like actually it is tied to what we're talking about today, because there's this idea that places have spirits. There's certain kind of spirit in any place, and certainly this place has a spirit, and today it feels like it's kind of wanting to test me or test us all or something like that.
Make you stronger.
Yeah, perhaps,
They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, so we get a lot of strength here. Definitely, yeah. But true enough, especially when we talk about the sauna culture and the Finnish sauna heritage, this topic about sauna spirits or sauna elves comes up a lot.
Yeah, right.
I think like this talk about this sauna tonttu or sauna elf is something that in Finland we still, in the modern day actually, we talk relatively a lot about, and when we then go out to the world, usually Finnish sauna is known for its stove technology, but if it happens that somebody knows some cultural aspect, then usually they say that, you have your sauna tonttu or sauna elf.
Yeah, and also with Finnish people, if we're talking about the deeper parts of sauna, usually the topic of the sauna elf comes, and they usually say that in the past time people used to believe in this sauna elves or something like that. Very common topic.
Indeed. And when you go into the archives and the folklore research about the Finnish sauna culture, there is a lot of material concerning about these sauna elves, but actually the traditional word for this is haltia, or guardian spirit, all a little bit lacking in the translations, but something like guardian or the spirit of the place. And this tonttu also, of course, comes etymologically from the idea of this tontti or property.
Oh, right, yeah.
So someone who sort of guards the property or some specific area.
Yeah.
So in that way, I can see the connection there. This guardian idea is there.
Yeah, right. I remember when I was traveling in Iceland, and I went to there's this famous Golden Circle tour or something like that. So we went in big tourist buses, and I'm usually a solo traveler, so I was a little bit scoffing at the idea of being with this American tourists, and it was indeed full of like maybe 50, 60-year-old American tourists. And the guide was telling about how like gnomes and elves are really important in the Icelandic culture, that even when they were building a highway, they knew that there's a sacred rock on the way, so they had to divert the whole highway because of that. They didn't want to destroy it. And then I even noticed that it's kind of strange that the person was kind of laughing those silly us silly Icelandic people, like we have these beliefs. And on the other hand, I know that American people usually are quite religious. So in the bus, probably many people are Christians. And in the Christian tradition, spirits are constantly a topic, angels and all of that. Especially in the Protestant church, they talk a lot about angels, for example. So what else is an angel than, this kind of spirit, gnome or elf? And so I thought it at the time a little bit hypocritical, because there's two different kind of belief systems here, and just talking about these things in different words. But that sort of colored my idea regarding these sauna elves. For the longest time, I thought it's like, why do we still want to keep this? Why is it so dear to us that we want to open any kind of article about the deeper aspects of sauna with this? People used to believe in these elves. And it's only through the studying of metaphysics and philosophy that it has actually opened to me, like that there's a specific purpose for all of these. It's not by accident. It's not based on belief, or it's not like people were seeing these small running, people with like hats on or something like that. That's not the essence. Maybe some people did see these kind of things, but it's not. That's not the whole truth about this phenomenon.
Yeah. I think we have mentioned in our podcast now and several concerning several topics this idea that neither one of us is maybe a very how would I say, doesn't consider ourselves strongly sort of spiritual people in that context. As funny as it sounds, considering what we do.
Also the podcast
and that we are talking about spirits and so on and so forth. But I think here you're sort of talking about a very important topic when it comes to this, that when you're looking at a culture or tradition, and especially something that then you want to practice, there is the approach sort of that says that you have to sort of rely on fate or how would I say, have this fate is what I believe. But then again, when we look at things, you can really, like you said, go into the sort of philosophical reasonings, I would call them, and see that what kind of logic is found behind very many phenomena. Is it a natural phenomenon that we're looking out in the nature, or we are observing in our body, or then we're looking at this cultural heritage, and we can try to see if there is that sort of logic behind it.
Yeah, exactly. And logic and like rationality, not a rationalization, because it's a way different thing. For example, one very popular rationalization about the gnomes or sauna elves is that people were afraid of the natural powers, and that's the reason why they wanted to personify these natural phenomena. For example, thunder or rain, that people would do something for luck. That's the standard sort of explanation for anything. Like if you go to like a temple somewhere, or even like a church, like Norwegian church, which has these sacred symbols, and then you ask the guide, they usually say it's for good luck. And the more I study philosophy, the more I sort of try to understand this very basic, like organic reasoning of these people who used to live in the ancient times, the less I think that they actually did anything for luck. They didn't believe in chance. So why would they say, I want to have like just tilt a little bit the luck to my side for the chance occurrence that I get something nice? It doesn't make any sense to me anymore. So it's sort of, there's kind of two words that always put me on the like fence, because luck and then other is magic. These are two words that I'm like, I just wouldn't want to use that explanation. There must be some more like down to earth, everyday life experience based explanation for this. Why people saw it as important as it is to deliver to the next generation. So not for luck, not for magic purposes, but for something completely different.
So how would you see this, the sort of, how would I say, tale about the sauna elves that have been told from generation to another? What do you see as the value of it? What is the logic behind it? Why is it a story that we still want to tell?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because this is, I notice it's also a kind of trap, because then, when you start to think about these elves and so on, then you start to sort of think, maybe I should do better löyly for the, elf's sake, or do better, work with heating up the sauna because the elf might be angry and I will have trouble. So there's kind of this almost fear-based approach. And this is a very, what in philosophy we call a dualist system, is that you say there's this world where I live, and then there's the world of the spirits, or the world of the God, or, Christians would say God and Jesus live there. And, some maybe pagan would say that the gods live there, or maybe some kind of animistic person would say that the spirits of the rocks and the rivers, they live sort of, they also have this ethereal world. And this, I would conclude, it's a long reasoning, maybe we don't go too deep into that, but I would conclude that it's a belief system. And that's all right, if someone wants to believe that, that's really like I command their, absolute right to have these, all kinds of beliefs. People are free to believe what they want. But when it comes to like explanatory power, like how does it actually cover the topic and its nuances, then I don't believe that belief is the best way to go. It might be one of the ways, but it's not the best way. So I would start from just basically trying to understand, like, what was the common sense of the ancient people? Like, what was just when something happens, how do you, explain what happened? For example, like with the sauna elves. I would see it in this way, that, for example, when we go with the kids to the sauna, and then the stove, the continuously heating stove we have inside, makes some, cracking noise or boom noise or something like that, I say to the kids, like, it's probably the sauna gnome. If you look very fast, you might see it on the other side of the stove. And then, of course, they're really excited, and they go, I almost saw it. So for children, this is a very natural way, it's very concrete. And the idea, what I want to, to accomplish with this is just to introduce in a very everyday setting the idea that this is not everything. Like what you see with your eyes, what you smell and, taste, and this is not everything. That there's a deeper layer, like beneath that, and that we would need to find ways to actually understand that layer. But I think when my kids will be 16, 17, I would say, like, you remember those stories about the, sauna elves? It's not exactly like that. I can explain to you what I mean. And hopefully they're receptive. They say, yeah, great. I know the story like well enough already from my childhood, so I know what you're talking about. It's not exotic to me. We have a culture with this. And this, I think, is the sort of ancient approach. If we look at one of the few of the most sacred places in Finland, like Astuvansalmi, and that they would actually do rituals there for 5,000 years, then I think this is sort of this basic philosophy of a living organic world with which we're in a seamless interaction all the time, is the message that they would want to bring forth with the cave paintings and all the rituals that they have done there. Is that everything that is alive in this universe, and everything is alive, we're all sort of sparks of the same fire that is burning. And it's not like in Finland it's been like a very like elaborate philosophical system. Like other countries have universities that actually have studied for thousands of years these kind of things. But I don't think in Finland it wasn't like that. It was more like expressive. It was very concrete, and sometimes or many times actually, survival sort of based, like tied to your survival. So, for example, why would you leave the last wood in a continuously heated sauna for the sauna elf? It's one of the most common Finnish ways to say it. I leave it for the sauna elf. It's just like everybody could say that.
The last löyly is for the sauna elf. I think that's a very, very common. The last heat. Yeah,
exactly. It is a very practical thing. Yeah. You have to do it because the next day the sauna will be dry and you want to have a dry sauna because otherwise you will get mold. Yeah. And it's actually a thing that you really have to do. Like I know this because I have for the longest time I didn't realize this. Yeah. And I got mold in my, in my benches. Yeah. So if you do that consistently every day and you have this kind of rationalization that you can actually transfer to kids as well. Yeah. You can say we leave it for the sauna elf. Yeah. And they will understand that, in a different way. They will think, we leave it for the small creature that I almost saw. Yeah. And us older people, we would say, yes, we don't want mold, we want to have a healthy sauna environment. So we do it for this reason. But to transfer this image and this mythology forward, the ancient people saw it as their most sacred and important mission.
Yeah, and because stories, tales, they last time. Yeah. So you can really pass on this very practical knowledge of interaction with the world very easily with these tales, and that is I think we have a very good sort of how would I say clue in interpreting then for an adult mind this sauna elf when we look at the older word what we have used the word haltia or guardian. How would you translate
it's the same word as in the Lord of the Rings. They call it elves, right?
They translated elves.
Yeah, and then in Finnish it's haltia.
Haltia, I think then tonttu is translated as gnome.
Yeah, right.
So I mix this because we talk about maybe Christmas elves. Yeah. But elves is how they translate this haltia in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, right. Or the other way around actually, but yeah. Anyway, the word is quite ancient, and it refers to guard something, to be sort of the possessor of something. Yeah,
also like
I don't know. Now I cannot come up with a better translation. Yeah. These fall short for sure. Yeah. But
guardian is pretty good. Like in a sense that it guards. I don't mean like against external threats, but like guards the spirit. It keeps it in itself. Yeah, like it's the aspect that keeps it.
And sort of gives it its character, and I always borrow this because haltia in Finnish we have another word for this aspect which is luonto, which translates as nature or as character, and I think here we have a very nice point about why these are so vital. Why do we have spirits? Everything has its spirit, its guardian, its haltia, because it gives us a chance for interaction. Yeah, because you have to have sort of this haltia. Even as a human being, you have your haltia, so that you are a person, you are a character that somebody can interact with. Yeah. And our smoke sauna here has taught me a lot about this.
Right. What has it like? What's
that's a true. It has a spirit for sure.
It definitely
and definitely, when I read, then I go to the archive and I read about these. Descriptions about these haltias of these saunas, and definitely a lot is reminded. Tales about this, that if you do this, then you will be found the following day that only your skin is left to hang in the and
now you can understand.
Now I can
understand why people are afraid.
Afraid, yes. Yeah. But seriously, sauna has a character. The stove of the sauna has a true character that you can interact with. Very lively, and when you're heating the smoke sauna, you're feeding the fire. And you're getting feedback. You're getting sometimes quite heavy punishments. Really slap on the fingers when you do it wrong. Yeah, right. You get really nice encouragement when you do it in a very harmonious way. Yeah. And
very concretely,
very
you get
concrete.
It.
Yeah, yes.
You see it like the red glow in the stones, and you're like, yes, we work together. Thank you.
Yeah, this is interaction, like really. Interaction highway going both ways. Yeah, and
seamless.
Also, true enough. You are sort of there is two poles interacting, but it's like one because the process is so one.
Yeah.
So you are like the heater of the sauna and the sauna. There's no difference, but still there is this interaction. And I think this idea about or this aspect, how would I call it, the principle of the guardian of the sauna facilitates this interaction very nicely. You know, it sort of makes it possible for me to talk to children about this, how deep the connection is and how lively the sauna is, and the child immediately gets a hang of it. And same way, if I talk to somebody, they immediately get a hang of it, that this is the personality, this is the character, this is the nature of this sauna. I go to our treatment sauna, and the haltia is totally different. The nature of it is totally different, and my behavior, my sort of interaction with it changes. So when we know the sort of the nature of somebody, then we can interact and sort of have this balanced interaction with it.
What have you found from the archives? Like, just very concretely, what kind of this finding yourself just hanging from the tree with whatever your organs out is one, but in general, like what's the scale? What kind of different things that you find there?
Well, is there is, I think, everything from these tales of very like cautionary tales, sort of, that if you do this, then this happens to you, and regulations on when and how to do the sauna. But then also quite subtle hints about how to sort of interact. A lot of this sort of, I would call it worship, different types of offerings that you do, you perform, you give, those are there recorded, and also consideration on these important turning points, transition, I don't know, turning points in life or in rights, exactly. And this be it the haltia of the sauna, now that we're talking about sauna, but of course other haltias also, like in the forest you had, like you mentioned, this sacred rocks, or this they were considered to have their haltia. So these were sort of the guardians of these rites also. When you're performing a certain type of ritual, they are sort of the nature of that ritual, and this sort of descriptions are there. Especially, of course, in Finland, kekri has been important. So the guardians, the elves of the sauna, have played important role there, but also in other yearly and life cycle celebrations.
So like, I think it's maybe our confusion with this is mostly that that in the past maybe 200-300 years it is a fact that people have become more superstitious, like people have started to believe in things that exactly this process has happened, that you cannot explain things, so you say just to God's grace, Herran haltuun, like we say in Finland, like that, or Herran tiet ovat tuntemattomat, like unknown are the ways of the God. And so on. So we sort of lost this layer where you would have this whole system in heating up the sauna, and also that they would have this intuition that our system, like as humans, a metabolic system works in the same way as the stove, and that's why you would actually worship the stove, which is, I heard it from you, like this is incredible news, that piece of rocks, that there would be a worshipping place. That's really incredible, because then it makes a lot of sense why Finland has a lot of piles of rocks which are sacred. And then if it is in the sauna setting, that the idea that all of these elements, like we talked in the element episode, as they come together, they produce this hyvä löyly, this rejuvenating, like healthy, like spirit in the form of this, also the concrete form of the water vapor, but all of it. And having this kind of intuition that it's actually our system working at the same time, how up until our cell level, how information is moving, it completely changes your relationship with what you're doing. So it doesn't become like just a needless chore. Like I used to think like sauna heating is like, it's so needless. Like why couldn't you just push a button? But then at the same time I noticed that in this electric saunas the löyly is not so good. But smoke sauna again is the one that reveals this true experience. So then for this talk that we have, for example, if you would have talked with me 10 years ago about this, I wouldn't have the concrete experience. Yeah. And actually, we did a sauna episode 10 years ago. And in this sauna episode, we were talking a little bit about gnomes. And I concluded, yes, it is a metaphysical truth. And I had this strong feeling, yes, now I get it. Why do you have a fire elf? Because fire is one of the elements. And why do you have the ground elf? And because it's one of the elements and so on. But I didn't have the experience at that time. So now that I've done it, like the work and repeating the work, that's also one of these mythological, like when transmitting mythological stories is that you do it repeatedly over and over again, so that your sort of the deeper layers of your mind, like your unconscious layers, start to change, so that the world actually corresponds with the ritual that you're doing. So it definitely needed this practical aspect. And for this reason, it does kind of make sense. You had in the Tietäjä podcast, which is a Finnish podcast about this, about Baltic Finnish tradition. And you had this professor in there who said that Finnish people didn't have a philosophy. I sort of get it, because it doesn't seem like that. But then when you actually do the same things that they used to do, then you get it. Yes, they did have a philosophy, but it was very practical. It wasn't intellectual. It wasn't like very structured. It could depend from village to village. It would get different forms. But the ancient people wouldn't say, oh, there's a contradiction between, like a logical, philosophical mind would do. But they would say, yes, you call it this. Yeah. It's interesting because we call it that. Yeah. But it's like same thing that they're talking about. They would understand each other. Like what is the sort of, in Jungian terms, like the archetype behind that.
Yeah, and that's why when Christianity came to these regions, it wasn't a problem to invite Mary and invite Jesus into the ruins. Yeah. And it wasn't a problem. They saw that, you call this aspect with this name, this spirit for you goes by this name. Okay, I don't mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like that sort of Finns in some concepts, when we especially talked that we were so much under the rule of Sweden and Russia and so on and so forth, that we were sort of the forest people there, in between and a little bit passed from one big one to another. Yeah. But I love the idea that, we were the forest people. We were sort of the elves of the forest, the wizards of the forest, who didn't maybe even need to make this intellectual philosophy, so-called, because our philosophy was so tied into the practice, and that's why it held on, and it wasn't, it was passed on because it was totally practical.
Yeah, exactly. And it's still 100 years ago, there just really wasn't that much roads. Like 100 years ago, for example, in Lapland, the best way was to go through rivers. If there would be a big river, you would definitely go with that, because no roads, and also the paths full of like swamps and everything. And in this kind of environment, like, for example, the Finnish people have been boat people for at least, like, probably thousands of years, like maybe 5,000-6,000 years we've gone with the boats. So when we go to a place like Astomansalmi and see the boats there from these ancient paintings, cave paintings, then first thought for you is that, they must have loved going with boats. That's why they're painting it. And then you have this intellectual thought. No. The boat must be a symbol of a philosophy behind that. And then if you start to boat, I would imagine if you would carve your own boat or make it from deer skin like they used to, or moose skin, and you would start to row it and, learn how to do it, in a perfectionist way, then you would watch the same painting and would be, yes, it was actually practical. But there's aspects that I didn't see because I didn't have the experience.
Yeah, and you would realize that the practicality actually reflects the sort of the symbolic language of it. So it's so, like sauna, again, very good example. Yeah. It is so incredibly tied to the practice.
Yeah. But then there's like the language also kind of tells us a lot, like just almost a complete story. Like when you think about, like, we sort of flirting with Christianity a lot of times, but I just love these symbols because of their clarity. I think Christianity was a project to clarify a lot of these ancient myths and repurpose them to better suit our time. That's my view, of course. But in this way, we would say the Heavenly Father and Mother Earth, that there would be this, giver and the receiver, and the dynamic interplay between these two. And in this situation, there would be something that would go through these both. So when you would have a spell and say that we wish from the, elf of the ground to be fertile, or sort of almost the like elf of the water to nourish the ground, then the sort of dualist or religious interpretation would be that, yeah, exactly, I want this small creature with a funny hat to come here and do some magic tricks, and then we would have fertile ground. But then on the other hand, you could interpret it in this what we call, like in philosophy, is called monistic way, which would be that I want to be aligned with the principles of the nature that give me a bountiful harvest. And these mythological stories that I've gotten from my parents or grandparents or since ages have been the way, sort of, if I do it every day, one day it'll be alive, a living thing inside of myself, that I would have it would come true to me through the experience that I have. And this is the practical philosophy. It is about repetition. It is about respecting your ancestors, and actually almost to the point that you would hope that you would get just a sliver of the wisdom of the ancients. Like that's whether it's the Greeks or the Finnish tradition or the Nordic or Native American. They always say, the elders, I wish just a little bit of that wisdom to myself. And of course, this is completely different now. Now we think we're the wise ones, and we're looking past to these idiots, and maybe we get some glimpse from the future when we will be better and try to develop a technology to get there or something like that.
And maybe this is why like you were in the beginning saying that this sort of, when you speak that these people were doing something for good luck, or this was magic or magical belief, it pains a little bit, because it really sort of describes this picture that they did not know better, so that's why they did this, and that's why they believed in these sauna elves, because they did not know better. So when people started knowing better, they did not need it anymore so much. But some nice tales, it was nice to tell to the kids to for passing time. But
now we can go to Lapland and put a nice suit on and tell these stories and have it exotic, in a sauna experience in a very exotic way.
And sort of for me, it has been a very important journey to sort of take seriously these practices.
Yes, right.
And really, really like sort of maybe even take for granted the idea that actually they have some deeper wisdom. Well, for me, it has helped a lot when realizing how well in line with nature around us they are.
Exactly this. We can even start from the just assumption. This is from Sir John Woodroffe, who was studied the Indian tradition, and he always said that I just was thinking that there's probably not more idiots here than anywhere else, and we can just start from that. They probably weren't idiots. And I was talking to this very experienced wilderness like a guide and this survivalist person who's done these things for 20 years, and he's pretty good. He's one of the best in Finland. And then asking him what would you how would you, if you look at people who lived here 6,000-7,000 years ago, how would you describe your skill level compared to a person like that? He said, well, something maybe aligned with a 5-year-old child, probably. They would probably outcompete me in many ways. And it was kind of revealing to myself. He didn't have any high hopes that he could ever surpass an adult grown man, for example, with the survival skills, just because our culture is not valuing this anymore. So yes, we definitely should give respect to these people and think always from this position that they were not fools. They had a reason. What's that reason? And could we learn something? Not LARPing that stuff, but learn something and put it in a modern practice. So go. It's like some people say that, do you want to go to the past? No. It's of course not. It's like a cyclical thing. So it's not like if I'm planning for tomorrow, then it's that I would think it in this ways, that there's I want to go to the past or something like that. No, it's a day that starts and ends. And the same way in history, things go in endless cycles that start and end. And I would just want to start a new cycle that we could actually appreciate these old ways.
Yeah, and the old ways, maybe I would even say the eternal ways.
Eternal,
those
yes,
that
exactly.
Are,
yes.
Those that last time. That me too. I'm not interested in going back in time.
Yeah.
Because we are now here.
Yeah.
And but there are so many things that are so relevant to very modern, right now, right here, life. So for me, like why I am very fascinated by these stories of the sauna elves, is because I see that there is an eternal principle of harmonizing, balancing interaction, having the nature express in so many various ways, and the more balanced you can be, the more balanced your nature is.
Yes, right.
So I find that this is the sort of why it is worth taking seriously.
Yeah. And why we would invoke these gnomes and elves is just to learn. It's a learning journey. What could a fire elf or a ground elf or a water elf could teach us about the practice of heating up a sauna, enjoying it, and also like about how to maintain and to make sure that the next generations have the same privileges when it comes to these sauna practices that we do.
Yeah, the spirit of the sauna. It really teaches us a lot.
Yes.
And maybe how would I say, the easily there, because like at least I have gone through that process, that very easily when we sort of try to find the logic and we sort of take some practice to thinking level or rationalization level, it's sort of it drifts very far from you, and it's something separate from you.
Yeah.
And especially or why we emphasize so much here, for example, in our sauna healer trainings, we emphasize so much the practicality. Come here and do this with us. Be it with us, because really those eternal sort of principles, they are, our mind is very influenced by the modern culture, and we are sort of prisoners of our cultural environment, but our sort of practical bodily experience is eternal, and from there we can sort of grasp then when we hear the tale and then we have that feeling when we're doing it in practice, then you can sort of pass this the prison of the time and sort of see the eternal aspect.
And perhaps the way is then towards a more like holistic and healthy way of just experience your life and yourself. That is pretty much what most of these runes, for example, are talking about. It's about how to be whole, how to be healthy, how to be satisfied,
feel meaningful,
about life. And in this time of this meaning crisis that we have, this is more useful to us than we could ever imagine. Great. Wow. This was a interesting take on this this metaphysical truth of elves and gnomes. You mentioned the sauna healer training, and actually, like we're now we're a little bit renewing this concept, and it has to do something to do with also with this practicality. But how would you explain what's coming up? What's new?
Well, I think we really want to be open to interaction with the world, and beautifully you have interacted with us.
Indeed.
So we are trying to reciprocate.
And
the feedback is that people want to experience. Of course, Finland is far for many, and maybe so far we have had the idea of 3 times in a year. 3 times maybe a lot. So we are now a little bit changing the structure for it to be the full sauna healer training is just these 2 intensive retreats, and then we'll have some online discussions and some small studies online in between, so we can have a little bit more, go deeper, delve more into topics. But then also for those who are just, interested, we will start hosting these very short intro retreats, we will call them.
Nice.
So that you can come and visit us for a few days and come and experience the sauna here and have a small a taste of what is it that we've been talking about. Come and greet the elf of this sauna. And have a little, introduction.
Yeah, that's really a very nice idea, and we've been sort of conceptualizing and thinking about this, like how could we serve here, because I think that's what we're really doing. We're servants of the sauna. We're servants of also all the people who are coming here.
Definitely.
And we just want to do it right. We want to do it so that that this could be actually a long project. Like I always have these wishes that this is an intergenerational project that we're doing. Definitely. And learning on the way.
Yeah.
And again, we just must thank you all for listening. There's been wonderful comments again, and I'll do my best to answer each and every one of these. And please feel free to subscribe and share this with your friends, family, if you would even guess that they could be interested in some of these topics. And keep sending those lovely messages and feedback to us. All right, so we'll continue the sauna heating. Yes. I'll go and check out the diesel heater. Maybe we're wiser with that.
Yes, that is for a hot pool or warm pool.
I will try to appease the elf of the diesel heater.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you, Laura.
Kiitos.
Kiitos.